Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be featuring one poor, incredibly power-crept ship, and that is the Khabarovsk, the original HE spammer, the original kiting destroyer, who has very much fallen out of grace in World of Warships. This game is also exceptionally brutal because the enemy has ships like Stalingrad. Well, it's first of all, it's a full tier 10 lineup, and the enemy has a Hakuryu, they have Shima, Daring, Holland, Grozovoi, and then they have things like Stalingrad, Des Moines, Hinden, and Moskva. Oh, and Smolensk, of course. So very few BBs actually to farm, and a lot of cruisers to, well, one single BB to farm. That's literally it. Everything else is cruisers and DDs and carriers. Not something that the Khaba particularly enjoys. Now, before I get into the Khaba, because, well, early game in Khaba, especially in the carrier game, you kind of have to play very safe, and you have to keep your distance, and because of the poor concealment and poor maneuverability. And of course, let's not forget, Khaba is one of the few destroyers that eats full battleship penetrations, which means that, well, any one of those ships shooting me can get full hard pens that will completely shred my health. So I have to play very safe, which is what I'm doing, and I'm utilizing the plane spotting provided by the carrier while the Holland is shooting down the planes to deal as much damage as possible. However, before I get into this, I do want to highlight something really cool. Tomorrow I'm going to be casting a tournament, a World of Warships tournament that is only going to last one day, so it's a very quick tournament. I was invited to cast the NA Warships Masters Invitational. It starts 10 a.m. PST, which is in Finnish time, that's 8 p.m. in the evening. In UTC, that's 5 o'clock. So you can probably just put 5 UTC into Google and you'll figure out what time it is. Basically, in European time, it's going to be tomorrow evening, and I'm going to do it right after my normal stream. I'm going to be casting at this tournament. Now, what makes it so cool? Well, the thing with Warships Masters Invitational is that they have a bit of a unique rule. First of all, carriers are obviously banned because they hope to make the matches interesting. But more importantly, the games are limited to 7 versus 7. And the 7 players have 100 points between them to spend on ships. And these different ships have been given an artificial value. For example, Kremlin costs 28 points, something like Montana costs 25 points, and then you got cruisers ranging from 18 points for the Des Moines or Stalingrad to something like 13 points for Zal. So teams have this 100 points to spend, and they get to build their team. Max 7 players, but they can choose to play with less than 7 players as well, and instead take stronger ships. So the players will get to build their own comps, and of course the players invited are, as far as I understood, basically the top finishers in the clan battle season. So some of the best players that NA have to offer. And I thought the concept was quite fun, and it's a one-day tournament, and there's some real cash for the winner available as well. So tomorrow's tournament should be some enjoyable popcorn entertainment for you guys who like watching a bit of comp in between all the other randomness. Moving on. Khaba. Well, you've already seen me struggle, of course, with the Stalingrad. Stalingrad is a nasty opponent for the Khaba because of that hard-hitting AP, the short fuse, and the great shell velocity allowing him to easily hit the Khaba. Khaba's speed used to be the thing that set it apart. Khaba used to be the fastest DD in the game and supposedly hard to hit, doing 45.1 knots. But then they added the Kleber, which does 46.2, and the Marceau, which also does 46.2. And to add insult to injury, while the Khaba only has access to a fairly measly 8% speed boost that lasts for 144 seconds, that is with the module that increases its duration, Kleber and Marceau both have a 270 second speed boost that gives them 20% speed instead of 8%. So obviously, when it comes to speed, Khaba loses terribly against the French competition. Additionally, they handle significantly better. They both have a rudder shift of less than 5 seconds. The only way Khaba can get below, or even, no, Khaba can't even get below, the only way Khaba can get a semi-decent rudder shift of 5.3 seconds is by slotting the first rudder shift module and then replacing the fifth module that you normally use for concealment on most destroyers, replacing that with a second rudder shift. If you don't do those two things, well, then you're stuck with the rudder shift I have right now, which is 8.9 seconds. Basically a poor cruiser rudder shift on this destroyer. The concealment is another issue. The concealment on the Khaba is the worst compared to the French ones. I mean, I'm going to be comparing it a lot to Kleber and Marceau because those two have obviously heavily power crept this thing. In a way, so has kind of the Småland as well, because the Småland does DD hunting significantly better thanks to the radar and far better concealment compared to Khaba. So it struggles with speed, it struggles with maneuverability, it eats full battleship AP pens. Now, what does it have going for it? Well, if you do build it for AFT, and if you run the legendary module like I am here, you do have a pretty decent 14.6 km range. Using that range can be quite challenging with all the railguns, carriers, all these things around, but if you do find good positions, basically you treat it more as a mobile cruiser than anything else, you can position behind the islands like this and stay undetected for as long as you can and try to get some farming and damage in. Note, normally AP against broadsides like this is quite good, but since I suspect that this Montana will be eating torpedoes and such, getting fires and forcing his damage con tends to be more efficient when it comes to killing him, especially since we're already down a ship. This game is already shaping up to be quite questionable because, well, our team is struggling. The reload on the guns with this build, I'm running BFT, DE, AFT and the legendary module, and I think the 3 million faster reload module as well. This all combined does give you a base reload of 3.7 seconds. Now, while the HE pen isn't really that impressive at 22 millimeters, you do have an 11% chance of starting fires with DE and flags. So, and of course, it does have Russian shell velocity, which means 900 meter per second shells, which means that the shells are very easy to land. That's one of the reasons you probably saw me nail that Holland quite easily, and why it's quite good at shooting spotted destroyers. It's still fairly fast, and the shells are pretty easy to aim and land on most targets available. The biggest downside really is the range, like this Montana just sailing out of my range and me not being able to do too much about it. I'm using my Shimakaze kind of as a screen because the incredibly poor concealment means that the Holland obviously outspots me. Holland's concealment is 6 kilometers, so he outspots me by a pretty staggering, what, 3.7 kilometers, and he's also a destroyer. So I'm using the Shima to spot for me, and the Holland actually gets detected on the entirely other part of the map. So I'm gonna see if I can maybe get in and cause some damage, perhaps start some additional fires, see if we could burn down this Montana. We're now down 2 ships already, and the enemy team is securing B, so this game is quickly getting out of hand. Khaba's issue is, of course, that it is very, very poor at pushing into camps and contesting them, because, well, most of the time you build it around heel, like I'm doing here, and because you don't really want to sit stationary in smokes in this large, clumsy destroyer. It leaves you so vulnerable to being radared, being torpedoed, various things. Stalingrad spots me. I start angling away, giving full broadside to him, hoping he doesn't get full pens and instead just gets over pens like that. In general, in the Khaba, when someone is shooting you, you have to choose between 2 bad decisions. One of them is angling and hoping he doesn't get any full pens that can potentially one-shot you, or the other is doing what I did there, giving full broadside and getting out as fast as possible and hoping once again that he doesn't land too many overpens to completely shred you. Stalingrad's fast arming fuse, of course, can also arm on your 50mm plating. Khaba's unique feature has been the fact that it's got 50mm plating on its broadside and a bit of 25mm plating on its deck armor as well, which makes it very resilient against enemy destroyer HE. It makes it very good against fighting them, in fact. But as soon as someone loads AP, all that armor tends to do is help arm those fuses, especially since we're talking about a really big destroyer. Another one of my teammates goes down, but more importantly, the Stalingrad is finally gone. so I'm gonna try my luck at shooting this Des Moines. In this case we do use AP. Khaba AP is quite good, especially with a full gun build. If they do give broadside, I'm not expecting to Citadel Des Moines, but I'm expecting to do a fair bit of AP damage, provided he keeps ignoring me. The carrier, however, comes in. And unlike the Marceau or something like Holland or Småland, any of these new DDs, Khaba's AA is really not much to brag about. Another one of the reasons why it's quite terribly power crept. So we just angle away, keep our AA roaring, reinforce sector whenever we can, and hope he strikes someone else besides me. I dropped my torpedoes, but once again, Khaba torpedoes are very, very depressing. First of all, while they do hit like an absolute truck at 19.5k a pop, and you can launch 10 of them, the range on the torpedoes is 6 kilometers, and the speed is 53 knots. They are mostly, or pretty much only useful when someone tries to YOLO into you, or actually more importantly, when you YOLO into someone and you manage to kill them and just get torpedoes off at point blank range, full broadside. A bit of issues with tracking torpedoes. The real place seems to be bugged with that. So this is of course especially obvious when you consider it, when you compare it to something like Marceau or Kleber, when you consider not only do those ships have basically, even if you build full stealth, they have 1 kilometer better concealment than you do. Most of the time you can't build full stealth because your handling is so poor. But those things, the Kleber gets access to 8 kilometer torpedoes, which do 75 knots. And hit for 18.4k, basically the same damage, but these things are 8 kilometers and 75 knots. And the Marceau, on the other hand, gets access to 9 kilometer torpedoes that do 63 knots. These don't hit as hard, only 15k, but they are infinitely more usable than Khaba's core torpedoes. So Khaba, unlike Kleber and Marceau that can get a fair bit of value out of their torpedoes, the Khaba can only really use them for YOLO situations. They are basically useless in all other situations. Shima left the smoke, so obviously I push in and try to leech it just a bit, trying to avoid damage whenever possible, trying to get some extra damage in on this Montana. Getting a bit worried about that Småland popping up and the Hindenburg in the center. In fact, the Hindenburg is pushing quite aggressively in, so I'm gonna see if I can maybe push away from range of both the Smolensk. If you look at the minimap, you can see my range towards the Smolensk and my range towards the Montana. If I just angle away, just like this, I will actually leave their range, which means I'm undetected. And the Hindenburg makes the delicious mistake of giving me broadside. Say what you want of all the other weaknesses on the Khaba. Khaba AP is still very, very impressive against broadside targets. And this Hindenburg probably wasn't expecting quite the damage he was eating here. That was even a 5k chunk on him. And with AR kicking in, you can see that my reload is actually a pretty impressive, what, 3 point something? Let's actually see the next time I shoot. Wait, it's still 3.7? That's actually interesting. Oh, never mind. I just remembered that I don't even spec AR on the Khaba. Yeah, I simply can't afford the points for it because everything is spec'd into survivability and gun power, and I need last stand, so I actually don't have adrenaline rush. So we're gonna see 3.7 km reload at 3.7 second reload at all times. I completely forgot about that. I'm so used to specking it on, and in fact on most other DDs, specking AR is obvious. However, on the Khaba, I've always struggled to justify it because, well, you want survivability expert because you're using heals. You want superintendent because you need the heals and the speed boosts. You want BFT for the 10% faster reload. You want demo expert because you're shooting HE at basically everything that moves. And suddenly AR never really fit into my build. In hindsight, I guess you could trade off one of them, but I always liked my 4x3 build. That's what I used to call it back in the day, and it's still the build that I'm running. Småland pops up. If I was a Kleber, I'd be pretty confident in popping reload booster and citadeling this thing. I tried the same with the Khaba, but he just turns in. Once again, we go for the, honestly, somewhat... The torpedoes are almost amusing in just how underwhelming they are. Like, you can't even see them yet because they're so slow. They're still behind me They're not even visible on the screen, even though I launched them. My main goal was not the Smolensk though, it was pushing up to secure this Hakuryu. Throwing in some blind fire, trying to make sure we get rid of this guy, because this is an important kill. And the Hakuryu is dead, and the only thing they have left is the Smolensk. And oh my, just look at those torpedoes. 53 knot torpedoes. You can tell this is a ship from like 2017, when you had Bensons and Khabas and such, that where 53 knot torpedoes was just something you had to deal with. Will they actually catch him? No, they literally ran out, even though he pushed right at us. Still, the AP is once again gonna be our goal, and we land a very juicy 5 Citadel salvo, getting 13k in on him. Kleber would have already killed him, but that's not here and there. We're just gonna keep farming him because he's providing far too much broadside. He finally starts angling, but I think it's a little bit too little, too late. Oh, am I not gonna get it? Come on. Want the kill, switching to HE because he angles. And he almost outruns, and I finally get the Smolensk kill. I thought I actually did quite well this game, getting a fair bit of DD kills, Smolensk kills, all sorts of things. In fact, looking at the personal score, these days I think if you get 175k in the Khaba and you don't die in the process and the enemy has tier 10 ships and carriers, I think you should be happy. Khaba in the current meta is painful to play. It is a destroyer that handles like a bad cruiser, but still has the firepower of a gunboat from the bygone age. Running into various cruisers that can absolutely dumpster you is not that fun, and man, running into Venezia's, Khaba's specialty, as mentioned, is that 50mm plating, and Venezia, of course, or well, Italians in general, have the special ability of sap penetrating 54mm of plating. So you can imagine what a DD that turns poorly and has a large profile, what it does against Italian cruisers. It's not fun. It is quite the blapfest, in fact. We did get 3 kills though, and we did get 7 citadels, so hooray for that. Team score wise, 2.8k base. Honestly, I thought I was going to top the scoreboard here, but the Venezia did even better than we did, breaking 3000 XP. In fact, this is a pretty rare game. You don't often see this. We have 4 players with more than 2000 base XP, and all top 4 players have 3 kills each. So this was kind of like 4 players kind of putting the team on their back and hauling them across the finish line. So not something you see really that often in games these days. Detailed report wise, well, we tanked 26.5k, potential damage 1.7 million, which is quite decent for a destroyer, 62k spotting, HE, well, mostly fired HE of course, but we did get a fair bit of, if you look at the damage, the situations where we used AP, even though we shot less than a third AP and we landed about a third AP, we still did almost the same damage with the AP shells as the HE. So it does prove that when you do have opportunities to use AP, it does give you a much larger damage output. But even so, I have such a hard time recommending this ship anymore. If you want to hunt DDs, there's Småland. Or there's just Daring that does everything a DD can. If you want to do long-range farm battleships Daka, well then there's Marceau. Or even Haruguma, although Haruguma has fallen out of meta pretty bad as well. I don't like it at all in the current meta. And if you just want to play speedy boat going blap blap against everything, well then there's Kleber that's basically amazing at everything and also sucks against carriers, which... back when Kleber came out, it was like, man, Kleber has really weak AA, so it's not that good against CVs. But then Wargaming nerfed AA on basically all the DDs when they removed mid-range flak and just butchered the third module and so forth. So now no DD can really protect against the carrier, except, well, Daring who can smoke up, and Marceau and Holland that can kind of shred the planes. That's pretty much it. So in that sense, Khaba's weakness against planes isn't that bad anymore, but everything else about the ship is just in such a poor state. But hey, I don't know if you've been paying attention, Wargaming is planning on making a new tier 10 destroyer that is built upon the Tashkent concept. As far as I could tell from the stats, it looks like something they might want to shoehorn to replace the Khaba. It wouldn't surprise me. They kind of went out of their way to replace the Moskva, and I think the next thing they're planning to do is just replace the Khaba with that upcoming Tashkent Tier 10 destroyer? Well, I can just say about time, and that would explain why they haven't really bothered to buff this ship, even though the Khaba quite clearly could use some buffs to stay relevant in the current meta. Anyway, let me show you guys my recommended build. I'm just rambling at this point. Right, as usual, module-wise, well, not much to talk about here. You can run heal or smoke, but especially if you're gonna run the legendary module, the smoke is very, very sad. I mean, it was already sad, but now it's even sadder. Overall, the smoke generator just leaves you... I think one of Khaba's main gimmicks is its ability to trade actively with other DDs. And if you do invest into smoke, well, then you kind of lose that ability. I personally just prefer heal. If you want to play a smoke Khaba, then why aren't you just playing Harugumo instead? Upgrade-wise, turret and torpedo survival. Increased speed boost if you have it. If not, then run engine room protection. Better dispersion on the main guns. Normally I would always recommend torpedo tube modification, but the torps are so trash they're not even worth running. The faster turret traverse isn't necessary because your turret traverse is so good. The AA guns mod is complete trash, so that really only leaves one, which is aiming systems mod. Faster rudder shift for the simple fact that Khaba's rudder shift is horrendous. If you want to go acceleration for the Dukes, well then we're talking at a rudder shift that is 11.1 seconds. To put that into perspective, let's see if I can find the Thunder. Where's my Thunder? I'm being blind. There it is. My Thunder's rudder shift is 10.4 seconds. So yeah, if you want to run acceleration, go right ahead. I don't like it that much on the Destroyer though. So yeah, we run steering gears. For the fifth slot, I think you should either run Legendary for farming damage, or alternatively just run steering gears. This one might even be better. Honestly, it depends on playstyle. With steering gears, you actually get DD rudder shift on the ship, which makes it much more fun to play, and it allows you to play more aggressive than I played in my game because, well, you're not so afraid of being blapped because you can actually dodge shells. So either one of these are viable. Concealment is kind of pointless because, well, you're still gonna get outspotted by absolutely everything. Third module, just faster reload on the guns. Otherwise you literally get outtraded by ships that aren't even gunboats, which is tragic indeed. Captain build wise, I am running my age-old 433 build, 4x3 build, which is priority target, last stand, and then we build survivability expert, AFT, and then we follow it up with BFT, superintendent, and demo expert. The point here is to give the ship as much staying power as potential, and the BFT and fires of course means that you can just sit on these battleships and you can farm them and farm them and farm them all game long. The superintendent and the additional health keeping you alive. If you do have to switch it around, the obvious mix-up would be of course getting AR and preventive maintenance instead of one of these perks. Personally though, I always felt 4x3 was the best build out there. Demo expert might not sound that impressive, but going from 9% fire chance to 11% on these fast reloading guns is actually fairly noticeable. Flag wise, obviously you want to run the fire chance flags, speed boost, heal, detonation. Those are the must-haves. Everything else is kind of mandatory, whatever you feel like it. Overall though, do I recommend the Khaba in the current meta? No, absolutely not. I made this because, well, I was kind of dared to play the Khaba by a viewer. Hey, Flamu, play Khaba. And I was like, you know what, whatever, let's actually try hard a Khaba game and try to perform in it. It was not a particularly enjoyable experience. The ship has fallen out of meta pretty terribly, and I think it's in bad need of buffs. I don't think there's any reason, for example, for the torpedoes to be completely unusable at range, while Kleber gets 8 km torps, 75 knots, and Marceau gets 9 km torps, 63 knots. Both of these ships have pretty much better firepower and better concealment and better speed and better rudder shift, and they don't eat full battleship AP pens, and the Marceau in particular has really good AA as well. Like, there's so many advantages there. I think Khaba could have actually usable torpedoes, for example. I really don't see the case for any argument in that matter. But that's just me, and I'm rambling again. Oh, and I do want to highlight for all you guys that won any of my giveaways, the prizes should have been credited to your accounts, so check your ports. If you don't have some ship, contact me on Discord and let me know. But hopefully I got all your names right and all the winners have gotten their prizes. Thank you guys for taking part in the giveaway. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and you can probably expect there to be more of those coming up in the future. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later.